Ooh, what if the afterlife is mid? How you doing, guys? Across time and culture, we have always tried to answer the biggest question of human life: what happens when it's over? The whole reason anyone does anything is because we know we can now, and we don't know that we can later. If life was infinite, its value would be infinitely platitudinal. This doesn't stop people from dreaming of their own afterlife, though, which they normally decide will be infinite. One thing is true, though. No matter how much of life you spend convincing yourself that you know what's going to happen next, when you're finally on your deathbed, you will not. Regardless of if you chose the correct belief, and you probably didn't, it's impossible to prove anything until you've died. We cannot verify what happens after life. This is largely due to the fact that everyone who is alive is not dead. You might hear that and still feel convicted in your belief, but just know, every night you pray, thanking your God for guiding you in the correct direction, there is someone else across the world or even in your very own town praying to a different conception of God with the same amount of conviction. And if you're afraid of the existential consequences of thinking about that, or if that makes you want to interrogate your beliefs in the slightest, don't. It's okay to be delusional. It's not embarrassing. We actually have collectively decided it's the norm. And of course it is. No one in their right mind wants one life to be all there is. So you either try not to think about it, or delude yourself into thinking you don't have to. And how could I say I'm totally above delusion? I'm not. That's why today we're exploring the question, what if the afterlife is mid? Like if the afterlife just consisted of Ordinary by Alex Warren and Walmart. As we map out the answer, we can decide if it's a plausible option. One day I was thinking, as a person tends to do, I remembered something I heard about why some conspiracy theories work. That if it is a big mystery, people expect a big answer. What's after life is naturally one of the biggest mysteries, so it makes sense why people believe in heaven, the best place ever, and hell, the worst place ever. Those are two very big answers. So big, they are, at least in some way, imperceptible according to most schools of thought, or delusion, whichever one you prefer. Unbearable suffering in the lowest place, or unadulterated bliss in the highest place. The brightest place, or the darkest place. The most ugly place, or the most beautiful place. At the center, the best guy ever, God, or the worst guy ever, the devil. Of course, these ideas also arose because humans want to believe in justice, a justice that is satisfying and inevitable. The greatest people who were wronged on earth get paradise, and the worst people who got away with it on earth get punishment. The question was, how could people escape justice? This big emotional mystery resulted in this big consoling answer. Actually, they don't. They don't get away with it. It's the absolute opposite. Some schools of delusion try to add more nuance to these all-or-nothing concepts, but it doesn't really matter and no one really cares. And so when I applied the truth about conspiracy theories to those eschatological states, it made sense, either because I'm right or wrong. Then I wondered, what if you flip this on its head? What about an afterlife that is mid? One unimpressive, frictionless, and indifferent about who you were before you died. This is not to be confused with a version of hell that some failing thinkers have imagined. One that is less about explicit pain and more about exhaustive boredom. Because That idea is still generally in service of an afterlife intended to be bad. It also centers very heavy undertones like separation from God. This is intended to be mid, not bad. Although mid is very subjective and it changes case by case according to who you ask. Something that is perpetually mid may just be bad, right? So maybe that thing that is perpetually happening that's mid needs to be tailor-made for each person. Or perhaps we need to strike a perfect balance of varying between good and bad. Also, to contrast heaven and hell, we should prioritize experiences that are actually perceptible in our minds. And your ideas are all welcome here. I asked my sister about the first thing that comes to mind when asked, what if the afterlife is mid? She said something to the effect of walking on a treadmill for longer than you want. That is mid, I thought, but it's also slightly bad. So I wondered if maybe there should be levels of mid. Perhaps that's the worst mid, and maybe the best mid is life on Earth. But even that varies. So I'm not sure. It really is hard to escape the concepts of good and bad, isn't it? And maybe a 9 to 5 at a job you don't really mind is mid. So like that's the, worst mid, best mid, mid, worst mid. Yeah, a 9 to 5. That's right. Even after you're dead, you still can't escape working. Mwahahaha. Oh, and maybe in one life, you will shuffle between different states, so it's not the same thing. The more I think about it, the more plausible it seems. Because you know what they say? The truth is often somewhere in the middle, right? One thing should be clear, though. Nothing will be permanent. I think that's another distinction about this afterlife versus the version of tame hell that I mentioned earlier. After all, if it lasts forever, really nothing is mid. Nothing is anything, and anything is nothing. That also means you can't know about your place in the series of lives. You can't know what's coming next, or if something's coming next, or what came before you. You can't know about the next afterlife. Sound familiar? It's almost like we're living this right now. Maybe Earth is what we have forever. But we can't know that. And maybe that's the whole point. Maybe the whole point is to wonder, to no real end. And you either try not to think about it, or delude yourself into thinking you don't have to. Why are we even doing this? Well, so I have something to post this week, right? But besides that, how about this? Whatever conclusion you come to about the afterlife is fine, but you're alive now. A lot of people think of the afterlife as the sigh of relief. They're ready to wake up and say, it's finally over, and begin floating in the ether. But what if that doesn't happen? We've already discussed the fact that it's not guaranteed. There's no sigh of relief if there's nothing at all. So are you really going to live life aspiring to a moment of cheap release that might not happen? Why do we look for another life to save us from this one? All you have is this. And maybe there's something here that's enough for you to keep living. Maybe if you look for that instead, you'll find it. That's enough. Y'all, I'm literally I'm literally sitting here on the floor like I'm in a position ready to give birth. My legs have fallen asleep. I'm in between a toilet. This is a toilet. Thanks for watching. And wow, my teeth are so white. They're really not, but I don't know. I guess it's just lighting. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope that inspired you to do anything, to think anything at all. And don't get too offended by my words about religion because, you know, I mean, it's a skit, so it's like kind of not real. I mean, it kind of is, but it kind of isn't, so. You're not allowed to get offended because I said that. So, you're invalid now. Thank you. Bye.